The expensive glass of wine felt freezing in my hand as the realization settled over the grand ballroom. I sat at the head table next to Arthur Vance, the billionaire founder of Pinnacle Systems, while the ambient music faded into background noise. Across the room, my arrogant supervisor smirked, completely unaware that he had just signed the financial death warrant of his own career. For 12 years, I worked as the lead operations coordinator at Miller & Cruz, a high-stakes logistics firm. My position was never flashy, but I kept the entire supply chain running without a single major delay. I was the silent engine behind our multi-million-dollar partnership with Pinnacle Systems, though the new corporate executives rarely noticed my daily contributions. The company had recently hired a new vice president named Hudson, a man who valued social media engagement over actual operational competence. Hudson wore expensive suits, spoke in confusing corporate buzzwords, and viewed seasoned employees as unnecessary financial drains. He immediately began restructuring our department, systematically removing the loyal staff members who had built our very foundation from the ground up. First, they let Sarah from our accounting department go without even a standard farewell announcement, leaving only an empty desk behind. Soon after that, David from System Security was abruptly locked out of his computer database during a routine afternoon shift. I watched my closest colleagues pack their belongings in silence, realizing that Hudson was slowly erasing everyone who understood how the business functioned. It did not take long for the cold shoulder to reach my own desk as my administrative database access began to vanish. My weekly strategy meetings were quietly deleted from the shared calendar, and the Human Resources Department ignored my polite inquiries. I knew my time was limited, so I decided to prepare for the inevitable corporate storm by printing out our original partner contract. Deep within the physical archives of our contract with Pinnacle Systems, I located the safety net that our legal team had created years ago. Page 42 contained a strict continuity of service provision that legally bound my presence to the entire agreement. If the firm terminated my employment without written consent from Pinnacle Systems, the multi-million-dollar partnership would instantly dissolve into nothing. I carefully placed the highlighted document inside my bag, waiting for the perfect moment to present itself to the executive team. That opportunity arrived at the annual charity gala, a glittering event where our wealthiest corporate clients gathered to celebrate. I was seated next to Arthur Vance himself, who greeted me warmly and thanked me for saving his national supply lines during a previous crisis. Across the crowded ballroom, Hudson was busy laughing with investors, ignoring my presence entirely as he drank expensive champagne. He believed he had already won the internal political war, treating me like a ghost that had already departed the building. I maintained my absolute composure, talking politely with the guests at my table while the tension built slowly beneath my calm exterior. My phone vibrated inside my purse during the main course, signaling an urgent direct message from my supervisor. The text from Hudson was cold and direct, instructing me to pack my things on Monday morning because my services were no longer required. There was no explanation, no gratitude for my 12 years of loyalty, just a clinical, heartless dismissal sent via text. Instead of panicking or showing emotion, I quietly tilted my phone screen toward Arthur Vance so he could read the message clearly. The powerful billionaire read the words slowly, his expression shifting from polite interest to deep, calculated anger. He set his glass down on the white tablecloth, took out his own phone, and prepared to deliver a devastating response to the arrogant vice president. Arthur whispered to ask if I still possessed the original contract document, and I nodded while touching my bag. He typed a quick, decisive message to Hudson, stating that the termination of my position also ended their master service agreement immediately. He hit send and looked at me with a knowing smile, leaving the ball entirely in the court of our panicked executive. Across the crowded ballroom, I watched the exact moment the notification arrived on the phone of Hudson. His smug smile vanished instantly, his face turning pale as he stumbled backward away from his group of corporate friends. He clutched the device tightly in his hand and rushed toward the exit, his confidence completely shattered by a single sentence he never saw coming. When Monday morning arrived, I walked into the corporate office with absolute peace, ready to collect my final personal belongings. The security guards looked highly uncomfortable as they watched me pack my single small box of items. I handed over my building access badge without a single tear, knowing the corporate machine was already starting to collapse behind closed doors. As I started my car in the parking lot, a message from Arthur popped up on my screen, telling me to sit tight and watch. Within hours, the legal department of Pinnacle Systems filed a massive lawsuit for $38 million against my former employers. The firm went into a complete panic because Hudson had fired the one person who legally guaranteed the contract continuity. The board of directors convened an emergency session that lasted through the night, desperately searching for answers to the crisis. Hudson tried to defend his actions as a strategic cost-cutting measure, but the legal team was not buying his empty explanations. They suspended him immediately, clearing his personal belongings out of his office before the sun rose the following morning. Internal audits began immediately as finance teams combed through years of communications to find out who authorized my termination. They found absolutely nothing because Hudson had acted entirely on his own without consulting the legal department. The stock prices of the firm began to plummet as news of the broken contract and the massive lawsuit leaked to the financial press. A few weeks later, an elegant envelope arrived at my home containing a personal invitation for lunch from Arthur Vance. We met at a quiet Italian restaurant where we used to celebrate our successful logistics launches in the past. He looked relaxed, completely different from the stressed executives who were currently watching their business dissolve day by day. Arthur slid a new contract across the table, offering me the role of Director of Continuity with complete operational freedom. I read the generous terms, picked up my pen, and made sure that I had the authority to choose my own eventual successor. We finalized the agreement with a firm handshake, restoring the professional stability we had both always valued. My old firm lost their biggest client and saw their market reputation completely ruined because they failed to value their staff. The board eventually terminated the employment of Hudson permanently, leaving his career in ruins after his foolish decisions. They learned the hard way that you should always value the people who actually keep your business running every single day. Now, I spend my peaceful afternoons working from my garden, watching the breeze rustle through the trees without any stress. I hold the power to define my own future now, free from the toxic environment of my past. It is a beautiful reminder that when you protect your worth, the right doors will always open for you in the end.